You are a soldier ant fighting in war, and you are losing. The termite in front of you is bigger than you expected, and there are more of them than your colony anticipated. You've been fighting for hours. Around you, hundreds of your nestmates lie dead. You lunge forward one last time, and then everything stops. But this is not just a story about fighting, because what happens before the first bite, during the chaos, and long after the last soldier falls is far more calculated, far more brutal, and far more human than most people ever realize. Insect wars don't start with violence. They start with information. Long before a single ant crosses into enemy territory with the intention of fighting, scouts have been mapping the boundaries, testing the chemical signals that mark where one colony's territory ends and another's begins. Every ant colony produces a unique chemical signature, a blend of pheromones that identifies its members and marks its territory. When scouts from two rival colonies encounter each other at a boundary, what looks like a casual meeting is actually an intelligence exchange. Each side is reading the other's strength, size, and readiness. The decision to escalate is made at the chemical level long before any soldier is mobilized. The triggers for full-scale war are almost always the same: food, space, and survival. When a colony grows large enough that its current territory can no longer support it, expansion becomes necessary. When two expanding colonies meet, the negotiation phase, the boundary testing, either holds or it breaks. And when it breaks completely. There is no middle ground in insect warfare. Once the chemical signals shift from boundary marking to alarm and aggression, the response is total. Every available soldier mobilizes. The colony commits everything it has. What most people don't know is how coordinated that commitment actually is. Ant warfare is not a disorganized swarm of individuals attacking randomly. Larger species use size-based tactics. Smaller, faster workers harass and distract enemy soldiers, while larger armored majors target the most dangerous opponents. Some species send flanking groups around the sides of an engagement, while a central force holds the enemy's attention. Others have been documented collapsing tunnel entrances to trap enemy soldiers inside, or blocking escape routes to prevent retreat. These are not instinctive reflexes. They are responses shaped by millions of years of evolutionary pressure into something that functions structurally like military strategy. Chemical warfare is also part of the arsenal. Wood ants spray formic acid at enemies with surprising accuracy, targeting joints and soft tissue where it causes the most damage. Carpenter ants take this to its extreme conclusion. Certain soldiers rupture their own bodies to spray a toxic adhesive secretion that immobilizes nearby enemies, sacrificing themselves to turn the tide of a localized engagement. Termite soldiers of some species have evolved heads that function as chemical spray nozzles, capable of shooting a toxic, sticky substance that glues enemy mandibles shut. In insect warfare, chemical weapons are not a last resort. They are standard issue. And then there is the part that the thumbnail already told you about, because not every insect war ends with the losing colony destroyed. Some colonies don't fight to kill, they fight to take. Certain ant species, known as slave-making ants, most notably the genus Polyergus and Formica sanguinea, have evolved a raiding strategy built not around territory or food, but around labor. Their soldiers attack rival colonies specifically to steal larvae, not to eat them, to raise them. The kidnapped larvae are brought back to the raiding colony and allowed to develop normally, imprinting on the chemical signature of their captors and spending their entire lives working as if they were born there. They forage, they build, they nurse, all for a colony that is not their own, with no awareness that anything is different. In some Polyergus colonies, the raiders have become so dependent on this system that they can no longer feed themselves without slave labor. If the supply of stolen workers runs out, the colony starves, even with food available, because the raiders have lost the behavioral capacity to do their own work. They evolved themselves into dependency, The raids themselves are precisely coordinated. Scout ants locate a target colony, assess its defenses, and return to recruit a raiding party. The attack happens fast. Raiders overwhelm the target colony's defenders with speed and chemical disruption, locate the brood chambers, and extract the larvae before a sustained defense can be mounted. The whole operation can be over in under an hour. The target colony is left alive, often rebuilding within days, which means it can be raided again in the future. Some colonies have been observed being raided by the same group repeatedly over multiple seasons. It is, structurally, a sustainable extraction system. The cost of war for the colonies that fight them is enormous. Large-scale conflicts between neighboring ant supercolonies have been documented lasting for years, with daily casualties in the thousands on both sides. The Argentine ant supercolony, the largest cooperative ant structure ever documented, spanning thousands of kilometers across multiple continents, maintains active conflict zones at its borders with rival supercolonies where fighting is essentially continuous. Millions of ants die at these borders every year, in conflicts that have no clear endpoint and no negotiated resolution. They fight because stopping would mean losing ground, and losing ground means eventual collapse, so they don't stop. What a losing colony looks like at the end of a war depends on the species. Some are simply overrun, their nest destroyed, their queen killed, their workers scattered and absorbed or killed individually. Others are enslaved, their population gradually replaced by kidnapped workers from the victorious colony over multiple raids until the original genetic line is functionally extinct. Some colonies, sensing that defeat is inevitable, have been observed in behaviors that look uncomfortably like evacuation. Workers carrying brood away from the conflict zone in the hours before a final assault, attempting to relocate the colony's future somewhere the enemy hasn't reached yet. If you're finding it hard not to draw comparisons to human history right now, you're not alone. Researchers who study ant warfare have noted for decades that the structural patterns, territorial expansion, resource competition, coordinated tactics, chemical weapons, slavery, sustained attrition conflicts with no clear winner, mirror the patterns of human warfare with an accuracy that goes well beyond coincidence. The underlying logic is the same because the underlying pressures are the same. When two groups compete for the same finite resources and neither can afford to lose, the result looks like war. It looked like war 100 million years ago on the forest floor, and it looks like war now. The difference is that insects have been doing it longer, and they have never once decided to stop.